Hello there. Welcome to another episode of Electric Sheep. Let's get things going with Man Made of Meat.
Man made of meat. Jonah was born different from the beginning. He was something solid, a mass of muscle. As he aged, he continued being different. At 13 years old, he stood 6 feet tall. Drunken men would be threatened by the boy, believing they could put him in his place. They were wrong, and Jonah learned what it meant to be powerful. One day, Jonah saw Francis, the local bully, putting a kid into a locker. Jonah instead put Francis in a locker, and the school waited for consequences because Francis was the son of the local mob boss. After he heard what happened to his son, he was waiting for Jonah. He yelled, demanding Jonah come talk. When Jonah approached the Cadillac, the mob boss nodded to his men, and the two thugs moved towards Jonah. Jonah moved without hesitation, grabbed both their collars, and cracked their heads together. They were unconscious. The mob boss crammed his car in reverse, but then he was ripped from his seat, dragged out the window, and Jonah said to the mob boss, "This is for the bruises you left on Francis." He smashed the mob boss through the windshield. Students, teachers, parents all watched. Was it true that Jonah was really a boy or something else? They murmured. Jonah grew over the next 5 years from 6 to 7 feet tall, a massive frame. He was put through camps and institutions made to make him obedient. He was put into the military, accepted at the age of 16, but none could break him, and his authority figures were broken and put in their place. By 18, Jonah wanted a challenge, and today he found it. Jonah sat and remembered his second confrontation with the mob boss. Cops had come to Jonah's parents' house looking for him. He left without an issue. On the drive, the cops told Jonah he was going away for a long time, but when Jonah asked why, they just laughed. Jonah was brought to the station and sat in front of the sheriff. Beside him stood the mob boss, now healed from most of his injuries. He said as he walked past and closed the office door, "You today will learn the meaning of punish you." His face was smashed through the glass window on the door and then twice against the door frame. Jonah dropped him and turned to the sheriff, who had his hand on his gun, but whose panic prevented him from pulling it out. When Jonah spoke, the sheriff took his hand off his gun. "I'll feed you your teeth if you point that shit at me! Now cuffs off now!" The sheriff listened to Jonah the same way he listened to the mob boss. It was out of fear. But at this moment, he feared Jonah in cuffs more than the consequences of disobedience to the boss. Cuffs off. Jonah dragged the mob boss out of the police station and slammed him out the front door onto the steps. Everyone always looks the other way for you, but for me, those cops are watching. All these people on the streets don't have to look the other way. Jonah kicked the mob boss down the stairs and then picked up a garbage can and slammed it onto the mob boss. He stood up the trash can and shoved the mob boss head first into the can. Jonah kicked the can down the street as everyone who had to look away or should have probably helped the boss just watched. They just watched. Jonah awoke from the memory to the sound of a knock at the door. Jonah opened the door and saw a very small old man who appeared very happy to see him. "Champion! I have come far, and I come offering the glory of a mighty challenge." Jonah was skeptical, but this was exactly what he was looking for. "Come, champion, I will take you to glory." Jonah locked the door and began following the stranger, who oddly led Jonah into his own yard. "Here, champion." With a wave of his hands, a glowing gateway opened, seemingly in the open air from nothing. "I have been summoned from a faraway place to retrieve a champion. Now walk and find glory worthy of your title." Jonah stepped through the portal as he asked, "What title is that?" The old man laughed as his laugh became something mechanical and synthetic. He spoke in a robotic voice. "You are man made of meat, and in this land that is something quite strange." Jonah had gone from the green of the backyard to a massive desert, and the old man had changed into a mechanical parody of himself. Similar shape, but definitely metal. Jonah raised an eyebrow and exclaimed, "You're a robot?" The old machine replied, "In your world, I was human. In this world, I am a machine. I am the summoner. I am bound to the ancient texts. I can be summoned to any world where sentient life can read my texts. And here, the Gormek Unity has asked for a champion." They are small machines, and the greater machine lords wish to recycle the weak and small for resources for the powerful. Jonah saw no reason to wait. Okay, old bot man, lead me to the asshole who needs his shit beaten in. Through the dunes they walked. They didn't have to walk far to find this strange miniature village of tiny mechanical people. The summoner announced their arrival. Have hope, for I have brought you a champion. He was interrupted by the arrival of a mech lord, who proclaimed, I have come for your resources. Once I have dismantled your champion, you will be mine, recycled and remembered only as another source of material. The old bot pointed to the mech lord. Champion, there's the asshole you asked about. Jonah cracked his knuckles and walked toward the machine that matched his height. The mech lord stood like a man, but his joints were massive points outward. His head had eyes and a crown, but no mouth. He struck first with a kick to Jonah's stomach. Jonah was surprised. He was used to just absorbing blows, but this hurt. This machine was more dangerous. Jonah smiled, for he knew he would actually have to try for once. Jonah grabbed the extended leg and twisted. At first, nothing happened, but then Jonah put his weight and strength into the twist, bringing himself and the mech crashing into the sand. Jonah had to be careful that they fell away from the tiny village. Then Jonah was on top of the mech lord, punching and punching, then switching to open palms, attempting to flatten the featureless face of the mech lord. The mech lord appeared stunned, but sent its fists pounding into Jonah's ribs. His muscles offered some protection, but he felt every strike. The mech lord pushed Jonah off and leaped upon him, smashing metal fists into Jonah's face dozens of times. Then he stood above the broken man and turned from the broken body to face the horrified village. Now you are mine. From behind the lord he heard, You're fucking with the boys? Well, you're fucking with the men now. As the mech lord turned, he was tackled from behind. Jonah grabbed the crown and twisted until metal crunched and the crown was ripped from the machine's head. Jonah stomped and stomped, then asked, Had enough? The mech lord looked up to see Jonah with the crown upon his head, and the smashed mech lord said, Please, I surrender. Have mercy. And so Jonah watched the mech lord limp away with a smashed head. He felt his injuries too and said, If that's all, I'm going home. This did not disappoint. The tiny village celebrated with a parade and even some small firework-like explosions. As Jonah stepped into the portal, he heard them say with joy, Man made of meat.
Well, believe it or not, even not obviously not the crazier parts of the story, but the character is based on a real life person. So if anybody knows who Laurie Shreenan is, you might recognize a quote in this story. But if you don't know who Laurie Shreenan is, you probably never heard that quote before. But I'll let you guess what the quote is. And so, anyways, I just want to thank you all for watching. And I want to wish you all the luck in the world. This has been Joseph Arthur Roszell. I want you to remember that I love you. Goodbye.